Friday night hoops for the Philadelphia 76ers as they continue their march through Texas, this time with the San Antonio Spurs. Can they rebound after a humiliating 33-point loss to, it was really bad, to the Oklahoma City Thunder on Wednesday? We'll talk about it here as we get you set for Sixers Spurs here in just a bit. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Pregame Show presented by Bet365, along with Derek Bodner. I'm Devon Givens. Kyle Newbeck has the night off. Bree is with us. All of you hanging out with us in the chat. And once again, our presenting sponsor, Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Derek, always good to be back. 13 games left on the season for a team that is 23-46. 23 games under 500 currently are the Philadelphia 76ers. And man, as we get ready for this game, first of all, we'll have our Bet365 pregame picks a little bit later. We'll have our starters, see if there's a new lineup to add to our counting towards a new starting lineup for this basketball team. And we'll also get into, with the NCAA tournament underway, prospect watch with some of the players that we need to keep an eye on if they're able to secure that top 6 pick. We'll get to that stuff in a little bit. But here we are, man, again, and we've said this multiple times amongst the 4 of us, 5 of us, including Rich, all of you folks in the chat, as we've been talking about this basketball team, as it kept just spiraling out of control and getting away from us, when most of the time we were looking at it and being positive and optimistic that they were somehow going to right the ship, get some guys back healthy enough to compete. That did not happen. It got away from us. It got away from them, most importantly. And so I ask you, Derek, as we sit here and start things off, man, how in the world did we really get here with this basketball team?
Yeah, we only have a half an hour pregame show.
We do.
So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to touch all the bases on this one.
Right.
Everyone was hurt, and then when they were the rare instances that they were healthy, they stunk. It is wild coming into this last game, ever since the big 3 went out. The offense has looked better than it did with the big 3 on the floor.
Right.
And it's one thing to be like, well, they weren't healthy often, and they weren't. What are we talking about? Like 13, 14, 15 games where all 3 of them were in the lineup together. Mm-hmm. But even when they were healthy, they weren't good. Now, a big part of that is that Joel Embiid just looked nowhere near like Joel Embiid. And because of that, he has to make an adjustment to his style of play, has to figure out how he can trust his body, how he can adapt his game to his new body. He didn't play enough games to really come to that point where he can make that adjustment. And because of that, the offense looked completely out of sorts. They were, for the most part, up until that stretch in January, still a good defensive team with him on the floor. That was not the case in January when he came back. But up until that point, they were. But offensively, they just had no real game plan, which you sort of understand. But they're also, you're talking about 2 guys in Embiid and Paul George who have a lot of experience. Like, they've played a lot of games, a lot of minutes. And so much talent between the 3 of them, you would have expected a higher baseline than what you got, even with a crippled Embiid. So there's a whole bunch of reasons. Health is obviously the number one.
Sure.
Paul George, Paul George kind of goes under the radar. And Kyle wrote about this earlier today, so go to allphly.com. Check that out. Paul George never looked like Paul George. A big part of that, I think, were the early season bone bruises. Part of that is aging. Hard to really figure out how much is each. But, between him coming out and struggling, and then Embiid being out for the first however many games, and Nick Nurse just not finding a way to win them any kind of game. Like, this season was just everyone, by the time people got back, everyone was pressing. And then because of that, you start making mistakes, and it just builds and builds and builds. And it just never, they were never right. Like, I know they had that 10-3 stretch. I know they had that good month of December. But even still, they would have had to continue that for a multi-month period just to get back into it. And there was just too much adversity, and they never reacted well. Yeah,
so I'm looking at Art, and we appreciate everybody joining us in the chat as we start off for this 8 o'clock tip, 7:30 pregame show for us. And Art says, historic injuries never seen before, ready for next season. But are they historic? Especially, you had the bone bruises with Paul George, and that can slow you down and getting off to a rough start, one after another. The first in the preseason game, that happened against the Atlanta Hawks. Then the second one happened a few weeks later after Paul George does return, and he's having the issues, and later on it's one thing with the groin, then later it's the pinky, and back to the groin again. But we've seen teams deal with injuries a lot. And I'll give you a prime example. When Embiid last year missed, 30-plus games for the Sixers, and Tobias Harris is out there. Tyrese Maxey misses a month because he has a broken foot. Or what was it? Was it a broken foot?
That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago, right.
Yep.
So when they both missed the time because they had the injuries at the same time and Maxey missed the time with the foot, they still were able to get through it. They were still able to fight through it. That was James Harden being out there on the floor. And yes, George did deal with the injuries, but as Derek alluded to, the story at allphly.com that Kyle wrote about with George in his story, the very first line, of course, it grabs you that Kyle says, Paul George only needing to outplay Tobias Harris felt like an impossibly low bar to set for the former's first season in Philadelphia. And he didn't clear it. Yeah. Right. Yeah, he didn't clear it at all. And yes, the injuries were there. So, all right, I'm not saying that those things were fake. We know that they were legit. But when you go into the piece a little bit more and you read about it, and it's something that we talked about from the very first introductory press conference that he had, he mentioned while he was sitting there at the table, Nick Nurse was in the front row and saying, we want Joel Embiid to have to work less. That means he was going to have to be on the floor. Now, George did play, 41 games this season. He's now shut down for the remainder of the year. But when you think about it, man, the times that even he was out there, and yes, he was helping with the rebounding and the facilitating, his assist numbers were there, and the defense was there. You talked about that great month that he had in January. They were 9-3 when he had less numbers, averaging 16 points in the month of December when they were 9-3. And then when he did play much better, averaging close to that 20, they started to go back in the other direction once again. Maybe that was incorporating Embiid back into it as he was slowly trying to come back. Maxey, of course, being out there. Injuries to Caleb Martin and some others. Yes, the injuries did pile up. They really did. But it was just, none of us ever really, and yeah, there were some detractors, but I don't think any of us saw a 23-46 record. Even for the ones who felt like this wasn't going to work as a trio, no one thought it was going to be this bad, this historic art, with how the season just started to go the other way.
No, people who were skeptics of Paul George or this trio thought, I don't believe in them to win a title. Or maybe even I don't believe in them to even get to the conference finals, which losing in the second round would have been a colossal underachievement in the eyes of most. So to say that you thought this was going to happen, that they were going to be this injured and this poor when they were together, I just quite frankly don't believe it. It is, it's again, easy to say this was obviously going to happen, but Paul George did play 70 games last year?
Yeah.
Something in that realm.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid, up until Jonathan Kuminga fell on his knee, Joel Embiid had the two healthiest regular seasons of his career. Now, granted, he was injured in the playoffs, and that was always the big concern, but he was really, for him, healthy. He was playing 65 or so games every year, which for him is he's always going to miss some time because they want to be cautious every time he gets some kind of injury. But he was playing pretty regular basketball and quite frankly, playing the best basketball of his career before Kuminga landed on him. So it's one thing to be this was obvious. Embiid's always injured. George always injured, but they're not usually injured to this degree. This is a whole new level of injured that we're seeing with Joel Embiid. And quite frankly, a level with Paul George that we hadn't seen in a while either. Mm-hmm. It's just everything went wrong. And then you, like I said, even when they were healthy, Paul George couldn't shoot for the first 2 months of the season. Tyrese Maxey couldn't shoot for the first 2 months of the season. So when you're sitting there with Embiid trying to figure out how much he can trust that knee, and you're sitting there and you have to find a way to try to scrape and claw and win enough games to stay competitive, you just couldn't do it. And the guys that were on the floor weren't good enough. Coach wasn't good enough. Embiid wasn't available enough. And then when he came back, he just wasn't fundamentally Joel Embiid. It's been everything that could go wrong, really did. And when you finally started to look like you had someone to give you a spark in Jared McCain, falls, hits his head, we panic. Oh no, does he have a concussion? No concussion, symptom-free, great. Oh, he tore his meniscus. We didn't even know he was being checked for a meniscus, out for the season. It's just, I have never seen I want to say I've never seen a season like this because the Dallas Mavericks are right freaking there.
Right.
It's been a long time since I've seen a Philadelphia season.
So do you agree with the framing that Art put out there that's historic injuries?
I wouldn't say historic. It's certainly
Well, yeah.
it's as bad as it can get.
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, look, for all the things that we've had to discuss, number one, they've had to go with it. But it just seemed like game after game after game, we're like, or week after week, let's just say that. Week after week, we're saying, all right, they'll get it together this week. We think they're going to get it together this week. This is a pretty good stretch. And even though Embiid is not there and George is also not there, guess what? The talent level is decent enough that we thought. Caleb Martin is there. Kelly Oubre is out there as well. Jared McCain goes down and Embiid is shuffling in and out of the lineup. They'll be fine. Kershawn Yabusele has been a revelation for what even we thought. Yeah, he's a 10th man. He can be a rotational piece. He might start from time to time. He was fantastic. But even with that, it was just not sustainable at all. And it kind of leans back into the coaching conversation too, because as much as we discuss Rivers on this show and we would get on him, one thing we would always point out, in the past when he was here,
win shorthanded.
And when instead this season, he would win shorthanded, and it didn't happen. And you can argue that he had less talent when he had to go deep into the bench with what he had, deep into that rotation, missing those players. He had them ready. But for whatever reason, though, Derek, with this particular group, I get maybe the message just simply wasn't reaching those players like it did in the past. New group, but the messaging just wasn't reaching the players from the coach, where we saw the same results. Where Rivers had them winning, Nick Nurse not so much.
Yeah. And the end result of all that is I'm questionable for tonight's game with a broken spirit.
Yes, as you should. You should be questionable for these final 13 games because of the very thing about the spirit and how we're supposed to get through the rest of this. Now, look, we're professionals. We're going to do our job. We have a lot to talk about. But I just wanted to ask that question tonight because it may not, even though Derek is talking about, we only have a 30-minute show here. We don't have a full hour. We try to fit in a lot of things in an hour and maybe even go into that overtime session. And we might not talk about what went wrong in the 60-minute conversation, but felt like it was pertinent tonight, just knowing that, as you said, looking at the injury report before we came on, let's dedicate a segment to Lonnie Walker being activated tonight after his concussion, right?
I mean, good for him. I'm happy he's back on the court. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's just if I were a fan, would that change my viewing habit? No, probably not.
No. I mean, the Spurs beat the Knicks the other night. Yes, they had a career game from, I don't even know how to pronounce the guy's name off the bench. No disrespect. I don't know how to pronounce his name off the bench, but the Spurs beat them the other night. They're still sitting at 29-30 wins right now, while they're right out of the play-in tournament. They're just playing some different basketball.
Talking about Sandro? Yeah, I'm not even trying that last name.
Yeah, I'm not trying that last name, but I
have it up in front of me. I'm still not trying it.
He had 34 the other night off the bench to help the Spurs beat the New York Knicks. And while I'm not expecting that type of night, it was funny because at first when I saw it, they were saying it, and I'm like, are they talking about Zvi? Is that Zvi Mihalik? Are they talking about Zvi? And then I looked back and I was like, oh, I forgot about him, number 54, for the Spurs going nuts against the New York Knicks in like 19 minutes.
34 points in 19 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So
they've won 3 out of 5 now. Now, granted, some of those wins were like the Mavs or I think the Pelicans were one
Sixers.
of the wins. Yeah.
Exactly.
But still, they've won a couple games here because when Wemby went down, they were really bad for a really long time. And Fox is out, so they've really got a lot out. But they're playing the Sixers, so they have a chance.
They do. And while the Sixers will give you that performance that they gave you against the Dallas Mavericks, where they beat them and compete against the Houston Rockets the very next night on the second night of a back-to-back, then you'll get what we saw against the reserves of the Oklahoma City Thunder, where they were down by 41 points, losing by 33. You'll get that. So we understand that a lot of people are not as excited, rightfully so. This team is not going to the playoffs. It has been a disappointment this year. But we just wanted to throw the question out there.
They're not eliminated yet.
They're not eliminated yet. You're absolutely right about that. They're not. But we just simply wanted to ask that question of how did we get here, man? And Art is right. You had some big-time injuries. The All-Stars get banged up. They miss time, and you had so many others missing some time. The coach message not reaching, and just big-time disappointment this season has been where we are right now in the middle of taking a peek at the NCAA tournament and hoping that the Sixers lose enough games to keep their top 6 pick. And watching games last night where both Toronto and Brooklyn had chances to win, and they did not in the end.
Cooper Flagg did make his return today, so that was good to see. Hopefully you get a long tournament run. I will say, for the most part, I think you shouldn't use the tournament to scout. NBA draft prospects. I think people tend to read a little bit too much into it, especially people who maybe weren't tuning in throughout the season. We're all busy, but like, don't come to firm conclusions just based on the tournament alone. Take the whole, like they play 35, 36 games for a reason. Take the whole body of work. If they have a down game, don't overreact to it. Don't let it override what you've seen or what other people have seen throughout the season. Like I said, it is one, and especially like someone like Duke. They're playing now, but like these games aren't real games. These might as well be preseason
This
games.
was a nice preseason tune-up coming back from an injury for him.
If a guy doesn't look dominant, don't go, oh, I don't know, maybe he shouldn't be the number one pick, or maybe I shouldn't be hoping they lose for him. Like, no, there's like, you might get, when you get to the Sweet 16, beyond there, you might get a couple games against really quality competition, but it's, like I said, there's a full body of work. Look at that.
Yeah. So with that, let's go to the prospect watch, because we still have to pay attention to the players that Derek is talking about. Two in particular from today that Bree and I wanted to highlight for Derek, so we can get some conversation in there about the games that are being played today. Some that will be played later on tonight. Oklahoma will be playing Jeremiah Fears, and Oklahoma will play a little bit later. That would be a fun one. Texas lost, as we talked about on that night, so that was a disappointment for Trey Johnson. And some of the others that we need to get into. Igor from BYU played well yesterday. Yeah. So we'll talk about some of those as they happen. But Bree, let's let the people know, if they don't know, what Cooper Flagg and VJ Edgecombe did today for their respective teams. Cooper Flagg today in the win over Mount St. Mary's. Duke wins 93-49, 14-7-4. It was a squeaker. But when you watch him, if you did watch him today, he was just getting back into the groove, doing what makes him that all-purpose player that's not one who's only looking to score, that doesn't give you effort on the defensive end, that doesn't make the extra pass, doesn't set those screens or diving for those loose balls. He went out there today, and he had a fantastic game for Cooper Flagg, even though the numbers don't necessarily indicate it, where he had teammates like Tyrese Proctor had 19 points. Yep. He made 6 threes. He had it going. You had a few other guys. Maluak had 11 and 5 today. You had 12 points off the bench for Caleb Foster for Duke. So it was a balanced attack for them as they cruised to the win over Mount St. Mary's. And he just looked good. He looked like, all right, yeah, he's going to be the number one pick, and nothing swayed me from it. And by the way, his ankle looked good because he still had the low-cut Kobe's on. Yeah, and that's really, like, going back to it, that's really what today was about. I don't really care how he looks against Mount St. Mary's. You can't really scout based off of that. It's just not a level of competition that is going to show you either his strengths or his potential flaws. I just want to see, does he trust that ankle? Is he back on the floor? Is he looking good? I think he passed that test. I don't think, like, if you watch today's game, I don't think he was necessarily, wowed you in any specific way. A lot of times that's not his game anyway. Like, he's the kind of prospect who is really, really good at pretty much everything on the basketball floor. Yep. And really smart in the way that he goes about it. But he doesn't have he has really good athleticism, but he's not like a jump out of the gym athlete. He's not probably going to have many 40-point games. He's just really good at virtually everything on the floor. And in a game like here where he plays 20 minutes, the last 5 of it probably wasn't even competitive. You're just, he's going to get the job done. You're going to move on with that. The key is that he's back on the floor. Yeah, he looked like a guy who was just simply out there playing basketball, fitting back in, easy 14, easy boards, 4 assists because he's making those extra passes. It helps when you have somebody like Proctor knocking down those shots or alley-oops to some of his teammates there close in and getting those finishes. He was just doing stuff that you look at and say, all right, this guy's just really good. So for the people who didn't see him this year or didn't have a chance, you could just see how effortless it was for him out there on the floor. It is tough because they were like up 20, like 10 minutes into the game. Yeah. It's tough. Yeah, so it really was. But look, he did what he was supposed to do, and they move on now to the next round to play on Sunday, and we'll get another chance to see him in that basketball game. We move on to VJ, I thought... Let's go to the BYU game. There you go. Yeah, absolutely. I thought he struggled in the first half, at least as a scorer. I think the first half also showed the way he can impact games still, even when a shot isn't going. But he had a real strong second half. I think he scored 10 of his 14 in the second half, was helping moving the ball, was helping defend. I thought he looked a lot better.
And he's another one where like he's not going to have very many 40-point nights. That's just not his style of game. He's not going to create all that much off the dribble, all that much in the half court. You're not going to put him in a million pick and rolls and ask him to create. He's going to slash. He's going to get out in transition. He's going to attack the glass. He's going to defend his you-know-what off. I don't even know if I can say that word. It doesn't matter. He's going to defend really hard. He's going to put pressure on the rim off ball. He's just really good in a number of different ways. Good catch-and-shoot player. But you hope that you can then take that, who's a real piece that can fit on almost any team. And it's one thing to not be an elite pick-and-roll player, but as long as you can be a catch-and-shoot player, you can fit in a lot of offensive systems. And with that defense and with that defensive versatility, now you take that and you think, all right, I can maybe grow his off-the-dribble game. I can grow him as an off-the-dribble shooter. Maybe not get him to a superstar level scorer, but get him to a really good scorer. And if you do that, you've got a heck of an all-around basketball player.
Yes, you do. And so I'm right there with Derek. And when
one of my favorite things about this draft is I'm pretty convinced that Ace Bailey is going 3.
Sure.
Which means that you don't need to get like a top 2 pick to have a good outcome here. You need to get a top 4 pick to have something I'm really confident in. Because 1 or 2 in Flag and Bailey, I'm really confident in as long-term pieces.
No, Harper.
What did I say?
You said Bailey.
Oh, yeah, and I definitely did not mean that.
Yeah.
And Flag and Harper, I'm really confident in as long. I appreciate that you know me and know my takes well enough to stop me. Like, no, you misspoke. I'm really confident in Flag and Harper. I almost screwed it up again as long-term pieces. And I'm really confident someone will take Bailey at 3. So as long as you get me a top 3 or top 4 pick, I'm really happy.
I do wonder, though, because when we look at this, it's let's say it's Charlotte, Utah, maybe Washington gets 3, or is Washington definitely going to take Ace Bailey because of what they've already put together? So that's where the intrigue does come into play. Does the Sixers, do they take him at number 3 if they were
that would
lucky
be
enough?
if I'll tell you what, if that happens, if they get the 3rd pick and take him, that will be an interesting show.
We will have a great off season for a couple of weeks and talking about that pick, especially with Summer League involved. But just my thoughts, and I'm agreeing with Derek here with VJ Edgecombe. First of all, first foul was in like 25 seconds on VJ Edgecombe, and you're wondering, how is he going to play defense now when you know how important it is that you only have 5 fouls in college basketball? How is he going to do it? Well, you saw it. He was still aggressive, but smart. Backing off of guys when they got a little bit too close in the lane, where he made them think about what they wanted to do. His hands are pretty quick, so he can slap the ball out. Is he going to take that opportunity? Is he going to take that risk to maybe get in there, get the steal, or pick up his second foul in the first half pretty early, because you know the opponent is going to attack him and try to bait him into that? He was really smart by doing that. He missed his first 4 shots early on, first 3 threes that he missed, and then he missed 1 more in the second half. He was 0 for 4 to start from 3. So to Derek's point, his effort didn't wane, though, defensively. He was still hustling. He was still bringing the ball up, penetrating the defense, making those extra passes to his teammates, who were, in fact, scoring out there. When you had the other freshman, Robert Wright, the point guard, who led them in scoring with 19, he was playing a fantastic floor game. He was hitting his shots. He was doing everything that he needed to do. And while the shot wasn't falling for Edgecombe, he was getting everybody else involved. Yeah. And that's exactly what he did. So when his time came in the second half to still take those shots, he wasn't afraid, even though he was terrible in the first half with those 5 points, with those, what did he have? 4 points in the first half with those 4 points, that he did enough. Hit those 2 threes in a big spot with like under 5 minutes to play in the game, where they had the lead, but they wouldn't go away, Mississippi State. And he knocked down 2 big threes, catch and shoot, with defenders closing out on him. Didn't hesitate, rose up. Again, the good shooting for him. The mechanics are fantastic. And he knocked both of those down, made some other key plays there as well. He had an and one at the end that they called off because they said he was fouled on the floor, which I was looking at him like, what? That was a continuation if you've ever seen one. But that being said, they wound up scoring a basket. They win the game by 3. He had some big free throws down the stretch as well. And you could just see how a complete player that looks like he wants to be better. He's very coachable and wants to grow.
Oh, yeah.
And his coach was interviewed. You know how they do the coaches on the sideline thing at a timeout? And he was scoreless. And his coach was like, yeah, but he's doing everything else to help us win. And that's what it's all about.
He would very quickly become a fan favorite here.
100%.
Just the way he plays defense, the way he plays hard, the way he approaches the game.
3 assists, 3 rebounds, but he played 20 minutes and his hands were all over it.
Also, and this is not a small consideration, but we just had a season where he got to go to the Bahamas. He's from the Bahamas. If you can get your prized rookie to talk you into going back there again next year, I would be okay with that.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. Although they might want to change because the Bahamas.
I mean, it didn't really work out, but
exactly.
It worked out for me, and that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. You're absolutely right. Let's get to the. So that was our prospect watch. We'll try to do that as we continue to have these shows and these games, and they're playing to give you a prospect watch.
Like I said, I think the opening weekend specifically is tough from a evaluation perspective, especially when you're talking about 3 guys on Duke. Like, you can't take anything from that. But as we get deeper into this, I would guess a lot of our pregame shows are going to be prospect watches, so make sure you tune in.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's get to the, so we'll do that. We'll continue to do that, and we watch them just like you do, just to see what they're doing. Not to overreact one way or another, but to see what they're doing. And these are important because as we did talk about with Tyrese Maxey, he did not have a tournament that would have been important for him, depending on how deep they got into it. Jared McCain only played 1 game, but he had 34 in that game, and I'm sure that might have, not that it necessarily made the Sixers pick him, but it didn't hurt that in his only game in the tournament, big spot, he drops 34 in the loss for Duke last year. All right, let's get to the starters here for tonight's game. This is absolutely a new starting lineup for the Philadelphia 76ers because Chuma gets a start. Yes, this is now starting lineup number 46 on the season for the Philadelphia 76ers. At the 5, you have Yabusele.
So wait, they have twice as many starting lineups as they have wins.
Yes, they have the same amount of starting lineups as losses. Think about that. They have the same amount of losses as starting lineups. Yabusele, Okeke, and Edwards in the front court with Grimes and Butler, who has been the starting backcourt for some consecutive games here. That's your starting backcourt for the Sixers against the San Antonio Spurs. What do you think of this one, Derek? This is a very interesting one with Chuma Okeke getting started. He had a really good game. So
he did.
He's rewarded.
And we are
we at that stage of the season?
Oh, 100%.
Yep.
Like if Lonnie Walker comes out and drops 25, give him a start the next game. I don't really care. Nobody's trying. Nobody cares about Winona. I know you do. I respect that. Almost nobody. I'll correct myself. Although Winona was talking a little prospect watching in chat too. So she's,
she was.
She's not going to embrace it, but she'll at least talk about the prospects. Very few people are really in it at this point for, oh man, they got to pick up. This is a winnable game. We got to get this one. In fact, most people are anti that. So if you have a young player who's maybe feeling confident, can get himself on a roll, give him a chance to go out there and prove it. I think it's great.
Especially when he is one that, he's still on a 10-day contract. Yeah. So you try to build off of that for him, and he wants to get that second 10-day. He was here earlier. They let him go. Try to close out the season with a nice run here for him, and he's going to have an opportunity. It's going to be, he's going to go against Harrison Barnes. He's going to go against some other younger athletic players there tonight with the San Antonio Spurs, but he just played against Oklahoma City that has nothing but athletes. Yeah. And he had a double-double in the first half. Those rebounds, and what do you have? 6 offensive rebounds in the first half to go with the 4 defensive rebounds. He was fantastic, and that's, you reward the guy. So if they want to get an extended look, he has a short time here with maybe he'll get another 10-day because the rest of the guys we think are going to be out for the remainder of the season, 12 games after tonight. You give him an opportunity. You give him a good look here.
Yep. 100%.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to the Bet365 picks, our Bet365 picks segment brought to you by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Let's get to the picks here, Derek. Let you know what I cooked up tonight. Justin Edwards over 1.5 made threes tonight for the rookie from Philadelphia to go along with another rookie, Steph Castle. 15-plus points. Yeah, 22 in their last game against the Knicks in the win. That's a plus 100 for you. If you add one more to that, you have the opportunity to add your 30% profit boost for a bigger parlay at Bet365. Also, when I was on Bet365 cooking that one up, they did have one for college basketball just to share with you all before we step away for the game and then post-game when we're back. NCAA basketball first round. You have a super profit boost at plus 64% on any game today. There's still games yet to be played. Plus 64% profit boost on any game today at Bet365. Folks, You know you don't get that often. Go get it. College hoops plus 64% profit boost. That's a separate bet, of course, from the NBA, but go take advantage of that at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Before we go away, Derek, let's look at the almost college basketball dunk of the year from the guy we were just talking about, VJ Edgecombe. He gets the ball out in transition, folks. Look at this. Look at this athleticism, Derek. That thing went all the way back to the three-point line. But I looked at it, I was like, oh, you could see it happening too.
Oh, man.
The lane just kind of opened up. They're not picking him up. The defender, I don't know what he was thinking. He was right there with him, and he just, boom. But it was an almost great dunk. The attempt was fantastic. It reminded me one that Dennis Smith had some years ago with the.
Don't you just hate it when you have all of that speed and all of that elevation, you're full sprinting, and you just bang it off the back of the rim?
I hate when that happens. I used to hate when I did that. All right. That'll do it for us here for the pregame show. We thank everybody for hanging out with us here on this Friday. Sixers, Spurs, enjoy the game. We'll be back with you. Derek Bree, myself, will all get together, talk about the game, check in on some more prospect watch for the players that will play here in the rest of the games here this evening. We'll get into it all, talk a little Sixers hoops, see what happens. Will they get another win here? This would be their 12th win of the season on the road if they pick it up. Will they do it? They're 12 at home, 11 on the road. Can they do it? We'll talk about it after the game right here on the PHLY Sixers postgame show presented by Bet365. Enjoy the game, everybody.
We all silly like the mayor.